to go across to Zafar Islam first. Mr. Islam, the opposition is demanding A, an arrest, B, an investigation. Has the government made up its mind about which investigative body you will be deploying to this task and how you intend to respond to these charges that are being leveled against the Adani Group?
Well, as far as the allegation which has been made against Adani Group is something which Adani Group will respond to that. Be it the company which their spokesperson will respond. I will not speak about the on behalf of Adani Group, but let me tell you a few things which is very important for everyone to know. That every time there is a parliament session, something definitely is being planned by anti-India forces, which is also being supported by George Soros and those who are actually were responsible for anti-India toolkit. They come up with something or the other so that the opposition has the tool to disrupt the parliament, and that is what has happened time and again. Just do a back testing of last few parliament sessions, you will realize that every time, just before the parliament session begins, they will come up with something so that they can disrupt the parliament. And who's suffering? It is the common man on the street, because every time the legislation, when it gets passed, the beneficiary is the citizen of this great country. But country is suffering, the people are suffering because of the irresponsible behavior of the opposition party.
Okay, Supriya, should I respond to Zafar Islam's opening salvo? This has happened in the past, it's happened again. He says right before an important session of parliament, something emerges which to the government seems like a massive conspiracy to derail the functioning of parliament and somehow put the Modi Sarkar on the back foot. They're saying this is a George Soros conspiracy.
Does BJP realize how juvenile and silly they sound when they say anti-India conspiracies, when they talk about George Soros? What is anti-India is that one of your businessmen has been found with his hand in the cookie jar in no less than the United States of America, where a 2-year probe happened, led by the SEC and FBI, and the Department of Justice's grand jury has leveled charges of corruption, has leveled charges of putting investors in the black hole as far as US is concerned, and bribing officials and politicians here in India. Do you realize the extent of the damage it does to our reputation globally, to our institutional reputation, and to the reputation of the rule of law and order of India? I mean, do you realize how silly the BJP sounds each time they say this? And let me jog people's memories here. I still remember it was that one afternoon when those horrific videos from Manipur had come to fore. The parliament session was about to start. The BJP said this is a conspiracy before the parliament session. It has been 1.5 years since the horrific crimes from Manipur are still being reported. The Prime Minister has still not visited there, and the reality is that you choose to look the other way. Why is the BJP defending Mr. Adani? Zafar Islam is at least on the show here saying, I am not going to defend him. But you look at spokespersons after spokespersons of the BJP, they sound like officials of Adani. They don't even sound like politicians. They don't even sound like members of India's ruling establishment. And the reality, Rahul, and I will take just 10 seconds to say this, with some experience in finance and economy, I can tell you one thing. The SEC has been at the helm of this probe. The SEC and the SEBI have a pact to help each other if any person is being leveled with charges. What is the SEBI doing? The SEBI took 18 months and told the Supreme Court, we have drawn a blank. And after that, levels of the extent of corruption of the SEBI chief has come to fore, and the government continues to stand with the SEBI chief and with Gautam Adani. Is it a coincidence? And I will close my argument with this. Is it a coincidence that country after country, whether it's Kenya, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Australia, America, are finding wrongdoings of Mr. Adani, but he is only safe in India because of Narendra Modi? Is this political, or is India's reputation at stake?
Brahma Chalani, you know, Gautam Adani was the one Indian businessman who was looking to take the tricolor and India's aspirations global. From Kenya to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, the United States, Haifa in Israel, he was somebody who was setting up, you know, the stage for India internationally. And therefore, within the Adani Group and amongst supporters of the group, there is a sense that this is a conspiracy to try and trip Gautam Adani and the Adani Group, not let them grow internationally, flutter their wings, and somehow try and clip them before they can sail and become international giants. Do you think that there is some merit to that argument? Do you agree with Supriya Srinath when she says, examine the evidence, look at the proof that's been put out, and let's not wave the flag?
The charges against Adani and his associates are quite serious. They need to be investigated fully. But they need to be investigated in India because these alleged acts of bribery occurred on Indian soil. Therefore, it's incumbent on Indian agencies to pursue those investigations, and if any evidence is found, to file charges against them. I'm more concerned about the fact that the U.S. has taken upon itself to indict Adani and company on the basis of the fact that Adani Green Energy raised $175 million in the U.S. for a $6 billion investment in solar energy in India. So $175 million, which is quite a pittance, for a $6 billion solar energy plant in India. So the U.S. has used that to, as the pretext to indict Adani and company. I'm more concerned about the implications for U.S.-India relations.
What do you think can be the implications for India-U.S. relations? Do you think it is out of place and uncommon for an amount like $175 million being raised in the U.S. to be used to level these kind of charges, given the scale and size of the Adani empire?
Well, first, the U.S. has long asserted its domestic laws, having extraterritorial jurisdiction. It uses the role of the U.S. dollar as the world's primary reserve currency to assert extraterritorial authority, and it has gone after many foreign entities and individuals over the years. Didn't the U.S. threaten to slap CAATSA sanctions on India some time ago? And hasn't India complied fully with the extraterritorial sanctions the U.S. has slapped on the export of Iranian oil? But in the case of the Adani case, the case is that his company raised $175 million and that he hid the bribery. That, the allegation is that the capital that he raised in the U.S. was used to bribe Indians in India. But the indictment says that the bribery totaled $265 million, so much more than the capital raised by Adani in the U.S. The point that I'm trying to make is that these are serious bribery charges that need to be investigated in India. The implications for U.S.-India relations are quite serious, because this is not the first case in recent months where tensions have arisen between the U.S. and India. We have seen an indictment against an ex-RAW officer fairly recently. We have seen U.S.-supported regime change in Bangladesh. We have seen how the increasing role of terrorism glorifying Khalistan separatists based in the U.S. and Canada is casting a lengthening shadow on U.S.-India relations and reopening old Indian wounds that go back to the 1985 bombing of an Air India flight. So the issue that I think we need to be asking is that are there some in Washington who are capitalizing on Biden's cognitive decline to do things that actually undercut the promising U.S.-India strategic partnership? That partnership is so important. It's pivotal to equilibrium in the Indo-Pacific region.
Let Supriya Srinath respond to what you're saying. The argument you're making is this fits in, the U.S. indictment of Adani for alleged bribery in India fits in with a pattern of extraterritorial targeting of chosen entities or individuals. The charge that the U.S. was involved in Bangladesh in orchestrating regime change, that there are elements in the U.S. deep state that don't like how the group is spreading its wings internationally, and therefore the effort that's been made to try and trip them down before they grow any further. Let Supriya respond to that.
Rahul, before you say anything further, I think the argument that Mr. Adani is the only one who's flying with the tricolor to take India global is a little too presumptuous, because there has been a Tata Group before them,
Sure.
there's been Sunil Mittal before them, there's been the Hero Group. I mean, Maruti exports to all over the world. The fact that Larsen and Toubro does work, the fact that Serum Institute does work, the fact that Ambani's, I mean, why excuse them? They're all global giants. So let's not say that Mr. Adani is the only one who's taking business globally. Mr. Adani has the unique exception that whenever the Prime Minister has traveled overseas, and I have a list of with dates, whether it's in Malaysia, Bangladesh, Israel, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Tanzania, Kenya, after each of his official trips, Mr. Adani gets big business there. That's the only exception. But to the larger point that Mr. Chalan is making, I agree with some of that, but I have only one point to add here. The Indian authorities completely, in a very docile way, accepted whatever was said about Vikas Yadav and Vishal Gupta. But why are we defending Adani? The reality is that very serious charges of corruption. He raised 25,000 crore rupees with Azure Power there. He paid about 2,200 crore in bribes. Allegations. This is the allegation. And please remember, the Department of Justice's grand jury also names an Indian PSU, the Solar Energy Corporation of India, a company that comes under the umbrella of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. And I find it exceptionally odd, and I find it exceptionally challenging by any common sense sensical person that the charge was led by the BJP by somebody called Dr. Sambit Patra. I mean, he's an MP of the BJP, but he's in charge of Manipur. He doesn't want to speak about Manipur. There have been 3 ministers who've served in this ministry, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Mr. R.K. Singh, and Mr. Prahlad Joshi. Some of them should come forward and speak about it, because some of the state governments that you refer to have all come out in the open and have given clarifications and said this is what it is. We are of the view, investigate everybody, but the investigation has to begin with
But that's
Mr.
the
Adani.
point.